The 2021-2022 Kawasaki KLX300. Kawasaki put together its KLX300 model with dual sport riders in mind and a definite bias for the off-road work. Suspension stroke and ground clearance point to a capacity for fairly rugged terrain, while the mirrors and full all-around lighting make it street legal. Whether you plan on proper adventure riding, or just want to forego the trailer action every time you want to hit your favorite trails, the KLX300 has you covered. Kawasaki KLX300 design. All in all, it's scarcely distinguishable from a full-on dirt bike. Only by the street-legal lighting, tag, and mirrors give it away. Kawasaki tuned up the looks and ergonomics on the KLX300 for a fresh presentation of its entry-level dual sport machine. A new front cowl and headlight housing rides atop a triple tree mount, off-road style mudguard that really makes a solid connection to its brown top roots and leaves plenty of room for the terrain-busting 21-inch front tire and generous suspension stroke. The ergos were tweaked a bit with a more comfortable handlebar position that allows for a relaxed upright riding posture. Seat height is still pretty high at 35.2 inches off the deck, even though it's fairly typical of the genre, and the footpegs were moved closer to center to complete the adjustments to the rider's triangle. A dirt bike-style seat and rear fender complete the bike with a compact hang-down mudguard that carries the license plate, its light, and the rear turn signals up abreast of the boxy taillight. The extended seat comes with revised foam support to improve long-distance comfort and make the bench made up with the tapered fuel tank and narrow waist. Plus, since it climbs up the back side of the fuel tank, you are left with plenty of room for the body English normally associated with technical off-road work. All in all, it's scarcely distinguishable from a full-on dirt bike. Only by the street-legal lighting, tag, and mirrors give it away. Kawasaki KLX300 chassis. Generous ground clearance, long-stroke suspension, and terrain-busting 21-inch front wheel speak to the 300's off-road chops. High-tensile tubular steel was the material of choice on the KLX300 for the perimeter style, box and tubular section frame for the strength and rigidity it brings to the table, while out back, an aluminum D cross-section yoke completes the structure to keep unsprung weight down at the rear axle. The main frame carries the engine in a single downtube, double cradle structure that supports the engine rather than relying on the engine for support and leaves the lump an unstressed member. Plus, a stock bash plate protects the bottom of the cases from terrain strikes, and that definitely speaks to the 300's off-road capabilities. The steering head establishes a 26.7-degree angle of rake over a short 56.7-inch wheelbase. And once the 21-inch front wheel is factored in, 4.2 inches of trail to deliver sharp responses to your steering inputs. A set of 43mm inverted forks float the front end on 10 inches of travel with adjustable compression damping. Out back, Kawi's uni-track system relies on a piggyback shock that's gas-charged as an anti-foaming, anti-fade measure with 9.1 inches of travel and adjustable rebound damping. Ground clearance measures in at 10.8 inches off the deck to accommodate the long-stroke suspension and fairly rough terrain. At 302.1 pounds curb weight, the brakes don't really have that much work to do, so the single 250mm front disc and twin piston anchor are sufficient for the task. A single piston caliper bites a 240mm rear disc on the 18-inch rear wheel to keep your rear end behind you where it belongs. Plus you can slide at will since there's no ABS feature on this model. Kawasaki KLX300 drivetrain. Updates in the engine improve throttle response with more enthusiasm than ever before. Kawi drew on its own enduro experience for the engine design of the KLX300. A 4-stroke thumper, the liquid-cooled mill carries dual overhead cams with off-road tuning. Bore and stroke measure at 78mm and 61.2mm respectively for a 292cc final displacement, and the dome-shaped combustion chambers and flat-top piston factors in for a medium-hot, 11.1:1 compression ratio. Power is reported as 26 ponies at 8,000 revolutions per minute with 17 pound-feet of torque at 7 grand. To keep weight low, the engine runs sans piston liner in the traditional sense, but instead relies on an electrofusion process that toughens the walls of the aluminum bore without any sort of appreciable weight gain. Inside the engine, weight-saving measures reduce reciprocating mass along with its associated mechanical losses to make the engine respond to throttle inputs with more enthusiasm than ever before. Induction control falls to a 34 mm can throttle body with no intervening electronics between the grip and the soup can, so you get raw unfiltered responses to your demand at the right grip. A 6-speed transmission crunches the ratios with a tough chain-type final drive. Kawasaki KLX300 price. MSRP on the 2022 KLX300 is $5,600. You can score a 2022 KLX300 in the traditional lime green over black and white highlights for $5,599. If that ain't your style, perhaps the fragment camo gray will appeal to you. I know it does me, but you'll have to cough up another 2 Benjamins to get it. Kawasaki KLX300 competitors. There's no shortage of dual sport competition out there, and as with any market that has reached a point of saturation, it's a game of inches at this point, fractions of an inch even. In fact, all 3 of Kawi's domestic foes have similar models in their lineups. Yamaha hits the scene with its $5,199 XT250 Dual Sport that fits the mold perfectly but falls behind in the drivetrain area with only 249 cubes and a 5-speed transmission. Suzuki followed the same playbook for its Dr. 200S, but falls even further behind in the displacement column with only 199 cc with a trade-off at the checkout in its $4,649 asking price. Honda comes the closest to giving Kawi a run for its money with the CRF300L. Displacement is in the neighborhood at 286 cc, and the suspension stroke tops 10 inches front and rear to give it roughly equal rough terrain capabilities. The $5,249 price point is also closest on the base model, and if you want abs, you can have it on the Honda for another $3 bills. Read our full review of the Yamaha XT250. Read our full review of the Suzuki Drive 200S. Read our full review of the Honda CRF300L. He said, "If I had to pick a bike for the zombie apocalypse, this one would be on the short list. It has a go-anywhere build that can handle some serious off-road work and still get along okay enough on the blacktop, though it clearly has an off-road bent. Plus, the camo over blackout paint package lends it an Army Scout look that I find very appealing." She said. My wife and fellow motorcycle rider, Alan Hinton, says, "The KLX300 is very capable, but, in my opinion, looks a bit dated. Although the camo colorway has a more modern look, sitting next to, say the Honda CRF300L, the Kawi looks like yesterday's styling. That's not a big deal, it's just my observation. The foot pegs are a bit narrow, but it's something you can get used to. The suspension is very nice, and overall, I find the KLX300 to be a capable terrain buster." Kawasaki KLX300 specifications.
If you liked this video, please share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.